What's happening, guys? Kenny here again, and today I've got another hype versus reality video for you guys. And what that's going to be about is that's right, the zero tolerance 0609. This is an R.J. Martin collaboration with ZT, and yeah, as you guys can see, it's in CPM 20 CV steel, and it does of course have that see-through pivot that everyone's talked about on this knife. Got a lot of flack for at the beginning. So yeah, just gonna get right into it today, guys. This is gonna be a hype versus reality review, which entails me talking about, well, first off, we're going to do the specs and size comparisons here, and then we'll go right into the hype, which is pretty much whether it be the community's hype or the distributor's hype or the maker's hype, whatever it is, we'll talk about that. And then we'll go into the reality when I got it out of box and used it over time, how it actually, performed. Did it live up to the hype? Did it reach all those those points that everyone makes about the knife, and how it overall performed, and how I think about the knife, and am I gonna get one? And we'll get right into how I got this guy, and that's gonna be Banner 24/7. Thank you again for not only letting me get this guy in hand, but also the Laconico Keen. That's right, this is a knife on loan to me from Banner 24/7, and I want to give a big shout out and thank you to him for that, because I really had my eye on these for a while, but I just couldn't pull the trigger. I was trying to decide between this and the 460. I'm sorry. Anyways, the Sinkovich design. I really wanted that guy or this guy. Just could not decide between them, and he just sent this one to me for me to get it in hand, so I knew whether I wanted it or not. And then, yeah, getting right into it, I'm going to go ahead and put the specs on the page here. I don't want to waste you guys' time. Go ahead and get that out of the way. And then we'll go right into some size comparisons. And this guy has really nice size, really great EDC size. There it is against the Laconico Keen, which is a pretty perfect, size comparison. So that was a good thing to get that in hand at the same time. We'll go ahead and bring in, let's bring in a budget option. Here's a Modus from Steel Will. I'm sorry, Modus from Steel Will. This is the D2 version. And then we'll go ahead and bring in one of his ZT brethren in the 0562. Much larger knife, as you guys can see. A little less like, I guess, EDC friendly. And then the CRK and Kosi. Again, a much larger knife. More on the level of the ZT 0562. And then we'll go ahead and bring in some Spydercos just for good measure. So the Manix, this is the Manix 2 G10 Knifeworks exclusive. And let's see, we'll go ahead and bring in the Rex 45 Sprint Run Military, just to dwarf the hell out of that little guy. And he's not little either. It's just that military is just a giant. But yeah. In saying that, we're going to go right into the hype on this knife. And the hype on this knife, guys, it kind of goes both ways. We got a lot of positive hype. There's a lot of positive hype surrounding this. And then there was also some negative hype regarding the pivot. Because having a special tool for a pivot is not exactly ideal when you're talking about, having a knife that's just accepted on a general level. So that's, you know, that's like the negative hype on this knife, is that you know, manufacturer necessary tool for opening this knife up. And they don't supply that, guys. I think they're between $15 and $25 depending on where you get them. This knife is $260, and they are available at Blade HQ right now, and also available at River's Edge Cutlery, guys. So as you guys know, I do have a bit of a partnership going with River's Edge. So if you guys enjoy this knife and you want to go get one, they are $260 at River's Edge, which is what they are at Blade HQ as well. So I think that's pretty much the competitive going rate right now, is $260 for this guy. And you're getting 20 CV steel with a titanium frame lock, of course. And it does have this cool chevron pattern. When I was looking at these guys, the hype really was all about, for one, the shape of it and the ergonomics. And also, RJ Martin's just known as a really good knife designer. And I really didn't have any RJ Martins yet, and I wanted to try one. So, you know, that was a bit of the hype for me. The action, of course, was a bit of the hype. Supposedly, these things had amazing action. And also, another part of the hype was the grind. Because most ZTs, as you guys well know, if you're at all ZT fans or just in the community a lot, ZTs tend to be thick stock and thick grinds. Not only just a thick stock, but ground thick to be like a overall user, you know, like tough. They're meant to be like really tough and like work knives, and not necessarily meant to be like slicey EDC knives. For the most part, when you see ZT, it's been thick stock, which is why, honestly, ZT never really appealed to me too much. And I was pleasantly surprised by this knife, guys. But we'll get more into that when I get into the hype versus reality on this one. But yeah, that was another thing about this knife is, you know, the grind. It was supposedly ground really well with a pretty thin stock, which was a departure from most of ZT's knives. Also, the weight on this guy, guys, that was actually part of the hype. I know I don't normally talk about weight necessarily, but I believe this guy is 3.4. Yeah, like 3.3 ounces is the advertised weight. So we'll see if that actually reflects what it actually is. And also, you know, dude, that's excellent, guys. 3.3 ounces, and that's with no milling here on the inside. It's just because they are contoured, and the milling on the outside really does take away some weight. And it's just a thin stock, and, you know, really not a huge knife either. You know, you're looking at like 7.5 inches, I think, overall length. A little over like 7 3/4 overall length, maybe. Just over, yeah, 7 5/8 maybe. So yeah, nice size, guys, for EDC. Nice weight for EDC. I heard it carried well. I do hear a little bit of hype, a little bit of, you know, flack they're getting on this pocket clip. But other than that, it's really, really nice. And it seems like it's getting a lot of hype because it's a nice knife. Now, the whole pivot thing, you know, for a $260 knife to not come with a tool to open it is a little, you know, it's a little ugly, guys, but it's not a huge deal. I don't really, it doesn't really bother me that much as long as they're fit and finish, as long as the fit is done well. I shouldn't say finish. I don't really care about the finish as far as action, but as far as the fit, you know, fit's done, as long as it's done well and the thing comes with good action and you don't have to mess with the pivot. And it is on bearings, guys. This is on ceramic bearings, I believe, with a ceramic detent. If I'm not correct, you guys can let me know. I did not take this knife apart, obviously, because I don't have the tool. But yeah, so those are other things on the hype. You know, it supposedly has really good action. The negative hype would be the pivot, and I guess some of the pocket clip. I've heard some negative hype on that. But all around, this gets pretty good hype as far as, you know, being a really good EDC knife. And then going into the reality, guys, when I got this thing out of box, well, not out of box because this was Banner 24/7's knife. And if you guys watched my Keen, you know that if you watch this hype versus reality, you know that I got these at the same time. And guys, when I got this one out of box, first things first, the fit and finish, I was blown away. You know, it's really good. I like the anodizing on the handle scales, and you can see it's starting to wear on the tips of the chevron pattern, so it's wearing really nicely. But it's a really good, even distribution of the color on the anodizing. Really nice anodizing, really beautifully done. I do like the bronze on this knife. It's very subtle, yet it looks really classy. The blade finish is really nice. Like, you have this more of a machined satin this way, and then a different direction. You know, obviously the swedge has the same direction of machining, but then this is more like a, I guess you would call that like more of a stone wash. So like more of a stone wash on the flats here. It gives it a nice look, guys, and you get that like light bouncing different directions, which is a really subtle yet classy and elegant look. And then the scales, like I said, are done really nicely. The machining is done really nicely. I don't notice any like mistakes or weird things going on with the machining. Everything's chamfered really well. The inside of the scales is chamfered really well. On the inside as well, chamfered really well. There is a nice cutout for getting to the lock bar there. Notice no problems there. It does have the over travel stop and lock interface, which is a nice touch, but not necessary, guys. I think that's something that, you know, the knife community pretty much made to be something that has to be. But I know a lot of knives that don't need it, guys, so we'll get into that at a later date. Centering's perfect, guys. Right on, dead on. You know, it has, I think everything's stainless steel except for the scales. So stainless steel back spacers, hardware. And then, yeah, as far as that goes, fit and finish, really nicely done, guys. Excellent fit and finish. I do enjoy the jimping on the flipper tab. It is actually some of the most enjoyable jimping I've had on a flipper tab. It's ever so subtle. There's no grit to it. Like, there's no sharp edges at all, but you get such a perfect purchase, and it does. It's extremely effective jimping without being aggressive. Probably some of the best jimping I've ever had on a flipper tab, to be honest, guys. If I'm being perfectly honest, that is amazingly done. Really well done for that jimping. And you guys, if you saw my keen, you saw that this detent is dialed in so perfectly, guys, as going straight into the action. The detent with this jimping on this, I mean, you can't miss. I don't think I've ever misfired this knife, even if I'm trying to. Yeah, I cannot misfire this. I really can't. See what I mean? Okay, so I can misfire this easily. I can't misfire this knife. Oh, there we go. All right, so I can, but I gotta really be trying to break the detent without letting it fly out. So that's something I noticed right away when I was flipping these two knives. I noticed that this one, after flipping this knife, this one's easy to fail. So that was just one thing I noticed right off the bat. Amazing deployment. And then as far as closing, really nice and smooth. Action is very smooth. So if you put it into the spot, it'll stay, but it is a light shake shut. Much less than the Keen. Very smooth. Very fun to play with. And if I'm being perfectly honest, guys, when I got these two, the Keen was fun too to play with, but not even close to the ZT. This one is much more enjoyable to fidget with, if I'm being perfectly honest. Very nice closing, very nice deployment, very fun to fidget with. No matter how you want to do it, very, very nice. In releasing the lock bar, there is a little bit of a spot here. As you can see, that's where the detent hits the tang. And then as you get over, that's where it's on top of the tang. So you do have to, if you put your finger all the way in and drop it down to there, you're still not on the tang. So it's still locked right there. Not locked, but not over the detent. So then you kind of got to move your finger a little bit further back when you're dropping it down, but it is past it. So you just put your finger back a little bit, now you're on top. Not a huge deal, but something to note. Very nice. Now if you guys have the 0562, it's not quite as far back as that. Like right there, it's kind of hard. You got to get your finger back a little more to get past the detent. But very similar. This one's even less you have to pay attention to. But just a subtle thing to pay attention to when you're dropping it down. Really nice action though, guys. Excellent detent. And in the closing, you can see sucks it in pretty nicely on the detent. Nice noise. Pretty nice. Yeah. Doesn't, like, this guy has a little bit more of that, yeah, that sucking in detent, but really nice, and I do enjoy the action on this a lot. So, excellent. And now, the other thing, when I flipped it out, guys, next thing I noticed was that beautiful blade grind. And, yeah, the functionality of that blade grind and how thin it was behind the edge. And I always hear these things about ZT being, you know, like thick, like super thick stock and super thick grinds. But I did hear a lot about this and how these are like a departure, this and the 0460 or 0462, whatever that is. Yeah, these two knives, this and the Sinkovich, really seem to have been ground more to be more of an EDC slicer. And it does seem to be done really well. It was really nice. And then just noticing that and then putting it in hand and being like, whoa, wow. The contoured handle and these grooves here for my hands really just fall away. Like this knife just feels like it just disappears in my hand. The way that it curves, the way that sits in your palm, the way the pocket clip kind of disappears in that crease. Ergonomically, guys, this thing just disappears. I do notice that this ramp is a little far back, but when you're pushing through cardboard or something, that's really nice. And then if you don't like how jammed up you feel here, at times I know people can feel like this, especially with larger hands, you can feel like this pushes you back. But if you don't like that, you just put your thumb here in this divot, and wow. Ergonomically, guys, this knife really does disappear for me. And yeah. Just can't say much about that. Every grip feels pretty good. The clip is kind of like hits your finger a little weird in reverse grip. Or I mean in pull cut. But yeah, every other grip, guys, is just extremely comfortable. This thing just disappears. And that's where it really performed amazingly for me, was ergonomically. And then next, of course, the blade. And in saying that, this is 20 CV. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in some footage of me cutting with the knife. And wow, guys, this thing was really fun to use. And like I said, it is 20 CV steel. 20 CV, if you guys don't know about it, it's a analog, kind of like family members to M390 and also 204P, which is done by Carpenter. So M390 by Bowler, 204P by Carpenter. 20 CV is done by Latrobe. It was originally, I believe, the recipe was done by CPM Crucible, but then Latrobe took over the steel. I'm not exactly sure when that all happened and how it happened, but Latrobe is who is manufacturing the steel now, and 20 CV is a great all around steel as far as composition it goes. And dude, the composition is not everything though, guys. And what we are seeing is that 20 CV and M390 have not really been taken to the levels they need to be taken to show how amazing these steels are. Because even though I did notice this 20 CV on this ZT does seem to be done well, and in sharpening, it does seem to be like it took a really nice keen edge. It came to a screaming edge that was hair whittling. It is really sticky, very sticky edge, and it seemed to perform very well as far as holding it. When I got this knife, it was on the factory edge, but it had been touched up a few times by Banner 24/7, and it still cut for me. I still cut a good amount of cardboard even after getting it and not even touching it on a strop or anything. I cut a good amount. It was still paper cutting, like it still sliced paper well, and I then went and put my own 17-degree edge on it, and after I did that, guys, it was a slicing beast. And it was, like I said, it was hair whittling. It did just perform amazingly after I went and put my own edge on it. I really enjoyed cutting with this knife. The ergonomics, just like I said, it just disappeared in my hand. I had full control of the knife at all times. Never felt like it would get away from me or feel like it was hitting me hard in a certain spot of my hand. It was just really a joy to use. And I really just was blown away by this knife. And it does fit in another, like there's something to be said. I do think that the finger choil knives are just kind of out of hand, and everything has to have a finger choil these days. And this is just one of those knives where it's got one place to grip and it's amazing. And I just think that more companies should be doing this. Just like the Laconico Keen, I think one grip done correctly is much better than two grips done well. You know, like just give me one grip done perfectly, and that's all I need. I feel like it gives you less things to think about. I do notice that the cutting edge is not far from your finger here, and I would never think like it felt like I was like telescopic or anything and the blade was too far from where my hands are. So in saying that, I'm going to go ahead and bring you guys back, and I'll start to kind of wrap this up. And we'll actually first let me go ahead and do let me grab my calipers, and we'll go ahead and do a behind the edge thickness here. Like I said, this is at 17 degrees. I think it was like right almost 17, 18, like maybe 35 degrees inclusive. Got about 19 thousandths behind the edge. And that's back here where you can see it kind of broadens a little bit. So let's see. 18 thousandths, guys. That's excellent for ZT. Most ZTs I see, and I think they're all in like that 25 to 30 range. So 21 out here near the belly thickens a little bit. I think it thickens up solid by the tip. Yeah, 28 thousandths right there. So yeah, so it does thicken by the tip, which is fine. You guys can see it does have some distal tapering, but not much. The swedge kind of gives you a false sense of distal tapering here. It stays pretty thick all the way out to here, you can see. Almost like the reverse Tonto of the 940. See how that comes back to thick out here? Similar type of blade shape. But, I mean, not similar blade shape, but you know what I'm saying, guys. So, yeah, really, really beautiful. Very nicely done. I did notice it cutting extremely well. Really enjoyed cutting with this. And then carrying it, of course, was excellent as well. With that weight is just amazing on this knife. Let's go ahead and get that. So 3.59, which is heavier than they say online. I think it said 3.3. So that's significantly heavier actually than they say, but not enough to actually notice in your pocket, guys. But yeah, 3.59. And you know, this just really carried well. The way that the angle of the pocket clip, this thing just curves really well to the back of your pocket. And then this is not a super big or aggressive flipper, so it's not really gonna get eating up on anything in your pocket. Not that I ever noticed that anyways. But yeah, just really nicely done as far as carry goes and use. I really enjoyed using this knife. It is a little thin in hand, guys. Now, as far as hand, I did not talk about the hand really that much. The grip size, this is my hands, which I have like, medium to large size hands. I do have a pretty broad palm, like large size and broadness of my palm. This is 3 3/4 inch across here. And then the point from this point of my finger to this point is 6 1/4 to 6.5 inches, depending on where you go at my knuckle. But like right to here is about 6.5. So that's the length here. And I do notice that this does feel just slightly a little thin in hand, but not something I noticed. Like right here, it's a little thin, but nothing that bothered me. And it really did just disappear in my hand. And in long use, I didn't notice anything that would bother me necessarily. These finger grooves, I normally am not a huge fan of finger grooves, but these really do just disappear from my hands. I do have really thick fingers. So maybe if you had like really thin fingers or small hands, that point might become an issue. But yeah, for me, it really just disappeared. And this knife just excellent ergonomics for me personally. And like I said, see, when I'm all the way up here, that's not a lot of distance. That's not a lot of distance. And this sharpening notch, the sharpening choil was done fairly well. You can see a little bit of smile at the end there, because it could have been extended a little bit more, maybe to right there, and it would have been perfect. But I'll probably fix that. And the reason I say that is because I believe that I am buying this knife from Banner 24/7, guys. He offered it when I did happen to. I'm not a huge fan of loaners, guys, and that's because I do use my knives extensively. But at the same time, I really use my knives, and I have them a lot. And occasionally, which happens very seldomly, but I do occasionally drop my knives, guys. It's happened. I hate to say it, but it's happened. And I think it happens to the best of us. So I did have this guy slip out of my hand, and he did hit the ground, as you guys can see there. And I told Banner 24/7, I said, man, I will buy this thing from you. I'll buy a brand new one for you. I'll send that one to you, and I'll just keep this guy. And he was like, oh, don't worry about it. I think I did that one. He said he dropped this thing a bunch of times before I got it, so he thinks he did that. But nevertheless, he said, I have so many knives right now that I would sell that guy to you. And he gave me an insane deal. And I think I'm going to take it from him. I really do, because I see a lot of things I can do with this as far as anodizing. I want to do some really cool stuff with the center pattern and the outside pattern and really mess with this and do something cool. So probably going to end up buying this guy off of Banner 24/7 because I do love the knife that much and I do want to mess with the scales. I'll probably end up getting the MXG clip just because I don't love this clip. Going in and out of the pocket was pretty easy. It does have a fair bit of ramp here, and it has pretty good retention and doesn't really get caught up necessarily, but it's just not an amazing clip. I mean, it works great. It works fine, but it's just not amazing. Like as far as like ergonomically, it fits great. I don't really notice it. I might just keep this one for a while and see how it goes. If it keeps bugging me, I might just get a different clip. But it didn't bug me too much. Not enough to be like, I gotta get rid of that clip. But enough to make it noticeable. Yeah, the other thing to note is you can't really pinch this. You kind of have to deploy it by the flipper tab. You can't really get a good grip. Unless, the only time I got a good grip on this was when it had adhesive. Because the detent's strong, there's no shaking this knife out, guys. But because the detent's strong and then, you don't have a lot to grip, you can't really pinch this guy out. You just have to use the flipper, which works very well, so no big deal. You do notice this sound when you release it. I think that's somewhat of the, like, just, I think it might be a metal detent ball. And when that interacts, it makes a lot of noise, but it sounds a little kind of rinky-dink, but it doesn't bother me. It's kind of cool sound. Really nice, guys. Action's great. So, yeah, in saying that, wrapping it all up, I really enjoy this knife, and I think it's a great option for anybody out there looking for an everyday carry knife that just performs excellently, has great ergonomics, slices well, would be great as a gentleman's carry, has good steel that seems to be treated pretty well. This is going to be going out to Kurt to be heat treat tested. Actually with his brother here. This isn't his brother in the sense of like, obviously ZT and Laconica, well, but yeah, but because they both are Banner 24/7's knives, they're gonna go to Kurt right now to be HRC tested, and we'll be seeing what these were at. But S35 on the Keen, and then CPM 20 CV on this. Be eager to see how those come out, but I will say this guy is still pretty sharp, and I did a lot of cutting. So I will be eager to see. It will be interesting to see how the HRC comes out. Really, really still pretty sharp, and like I said, I did a lot of cutting. Let's see. I didn't strop it or anything either. Yeah, it's not really shaving sharp. Maybe scrape shave. Not really, though. So, yeah. But overall, guys, really nice knife. I would suggest it to anyone out there looking for good EDC or gentleman's carry. Excellent, excellent knife. Well done. Great action, great ergos, great blade grind. Not much I can say bad about the knife. So, thanks a lot for watching, guys. Thanks a lot to Banner 24/7. You guys should go check them out if you're not already subscribed to them, which you should be. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching my video, and hope you had a great. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks a lot.